What's going on, DFS Army? How's everybody doing on this Saturday, August 10th, 2019? It's going to talk a little bit about cash games today. Just myself. Chop's not on today, so go over some pitchers, maybe some hitters to look at, some teams to stack, both on FanDuel and DrattKings. Answer any questions you might have. Preseason football. We're going to have 3 games tonight. Chris already has his notes out. So if you want to slide in and talk about that, we got MMA tonight. So I know Geek and the team has all their notes up for that and going to attack that. Got a lot going on this Saturday here at the Army. So again, sign on up for the Army and you get all that stuff for the price of one. No one's going to nickel and dime you here, man. So get all those things, one price. Use promo code CashCake, save 20%. And let's get after it. I'll have my cash game sheet up a little bit later. And I'll be doing the NFL projections probably in a couple hours for preseason tonight for the 3-gamer. So I'm almost done. I went through the first run, but I got to do a few more tweaks to it before I put them up on the site. So I'll notify everybody in Slack once they're done and once they're up there. But anyways, let's talk about this main slate 10-gamer today. It's going to be interesting because pitching there's no clear-cut pitcher for me on this slate. There's a lot of ways you can go. Some of the offenses we want to attack in cash are going to be a little on the expensive side, so we might want to pay down a pitcher. I haven't completely made up my mind, but it's one of those spots where it's going to dictate the rest of your lineup because we have some options up top with Charlie Morton. Which surprising when you look at his numbers. I mean, he's expensive. We might have some cheap bats to get to him. Let's see here. Let me pull him up. He's going up against Seattle in Seattle. He's actually got better strikeout numbers against lefties and righties. You'll probably see 5 lefties in this lineup, I would assume, with Seattle, with Smith, Crawford, Vogelbach, Navarez, Seager. And he actually strikes out lefties at a 32% clip, whereas righties at 27%. I mean, he's skill position-wise on this slate, he's the best pitcher, but paying $11K really kind of hurts where you want to go. And if we don't have enough value bats to throw him in there, it's going to be kind of tough. But by far, he holds righties to a less than a .099 ISO with a 247 WOBA, man, and lefties very similar to that. If we can pay up for him, that's the way we're going to go. But I don't know if I want to go to Morton today. I mean, Syndergaard could be a little popular, but against Washington, I really don't want to go there. I mean, I'd rather play 300 more for Morton all day. Corbin's more of a GPP play. I mean, he can rack up the Ks against anyone, especially New York. But what's going on, man? What's going on, Tyler Wood? If you got any questions, just put them in there, man, and we'll answer them as we go. But I'm looking at down here at like Chris Paddock, or if we want to get down even more, one guy that if we're going to get up some bats, like I said, I think Houston and the Brew Crew are going to be the expensive guys on the slate. It's going to be Kenta Maeda. He's 6,700. He's at home. Yes, he's facing an Arizona lineup that probably going to roll out 5 lefties as well, with Marte, Peralta, Lamb. Maybe see Avila down in the 9-hole, Escobar switch hitter in 3-hole. And he does struggle more against lefties and righties. His K rate is way lower against lefties, around 20%, where against righties he's up to almost 31%. That ISO is a little high at 201 against lefties and WOBA at 358. So that makes me a little nervous. But if we're going to fit in some bats, and if you're going to go down at pitching, it's probably Maeda for me if you think those high price bats are going to go off. And looking at a few of them when we go through, those Houston bats are expensive, man. And I think I want a few of them in my cash lineup tonight. So that's where, like, first glance at this slate, and as I'm writing up my cash sheet, I'm looking more at the Maeda range or going up a little bit with Paddock against Colorado on the road in that ballpark. It's got a high K rate. Let's look at his numbers just a little bit. He's a little bit more expensive, and I might end up there, but I don't think I'm going to get up to Morton or these high-priced guys. Like I said, I think Corbin's more of a GPP. I'm kind of be off center guard, even if he's getting some steam with being high owned. I really don't want that. So for me, it's like I'm paying up to Morton, down to Maeda, or I'm here at Paddock. So let me just pull up Paddock's numbers real quick and see how he's been doing this year. So he's got 30% K rate against righties. We'll probably see, again, probably 4 or 5 lefties in that Colorado lineup, but they don't hit quite as well on the road than at home in Coors. He's got 22% K rate against lefties, but he does give up that 206 ISO against them, where it's a lot less than 128 against righties. So at 8,400, he can rack up the Ks. So if I was looking, it's between Maeda and Paddock right now for pitching. So let's leave Maeda in there for now. I'm not going to build a full lineup. I think anyone who does build a full lineup, you're going against you're not doing anyone a service. You're going against the terms and conditions of most of the sites. So I'll throw in a few guys. I'll always leave 1 or 2 slots open. I'll never build a full lineup for you guys. I just don't think that's right. But I'll definitely talk guys at each position that I like. And if you have any questions, man, just let me know and we'll talk through them. So at first base, I think it's just kind of everywhere. There's not a certain guy that I'm just absolutely in love and I think you need in cash games. At first glance, I really like Goldie. He's been hitting the ball really well. But again, there's nobody that I'm just like, Votto, 3,200 is nice. There's just nobody I love. So when I'm building a cash game, I'll just kind of skip over that and just go to second base, because I think there's clear-cut guy in cash you want on second base, and it's Jose Altuve. And so there's no reason to try to pick a first baseman now if there's guys that I just know I'm going to plug into my lineup. And he's going up against Aaron Brooks in that stinking horrendous bullpen of Baltimore. They've got the highest implied team total on the slate. I think they're pushing 7. Aaron Sanchez is on the mound again, and he almost pitched a no-hitter for Houston. I didn't mention him for pitchers, but if you think that's still a thing at 8,200, I don't mind rolling him back out there against Baltimore. I think I would keep him more for GPPs, but he looked really good in that first start for Houston. So just keep that in mind. I think he's a minus 270 favorite right now. But anyways, back to the second base. It's Altuve, Houston. All these guys are in play, man. Like, you can play Springer, Altuve, Brantley, Bregman, Alvarez. Those are the guys I look at in cash. But they're all expensive. We're not getting no discounts here. Throwing the Houston guys out here. Where are they at? Astros. Springer's 4,500, Altuve's 4,400. So I'm looking at cash games and I'm building these guys that I really like. I will start looking at, like position players. I'd rather play an Altuve than say, Springer and Alvarez and Brantley, play 3 guys, because there's usually so many guys in the outfield that are cheaper that you can get to, unless you just absolutely love the spot. And I don't think it's, I just don't think it's necessary. I have no problem playing Brantley, Alvarez, or Springer. They're all fantastic plays in cash. And if I'm stacking, I'm probably stacking those front 4, with even with Bregman there too. Those 5 guys right there, but they're all over $4,000. So on a cash approach, I would first start with throwing Altuve in there, and then throwing Bregman in there. And that just, there are two spots that I think I can get more value out of the outfield. So if I want two bats, and if there's no other second base or third baseman I think is going to come close to their output in cash, and I think they're going to be extremely popular, I will just throw them two in the lineup. We throw Maeda in there, we still have 3,300, so we might be able to get some more Houston bats in here. One other guy that, been, with Milwaukee being with a high implied team total, hopefully he's leading off again today. He's been really good. It's Trent Grisham. It's 2,900. To me, that's just a plug and play. At that price, leading off, high in, I think he's pitching against Pedro Payano. If we look up his stats a little bit here, Pedro's not been very good this season. It's got a low K rate against lefties. Around 22%, I guess, isn't too bad. It's got a pretty high line drive rate at 31%. It's kept the ISO pretty low against lefties, but a guy like Grisham, he's like a 5-2 player. He can do everything for us. And he's hitting a 278 ISO against righties with a 359 WOBA and a low walk rate. And you get a guy like that, 2,900 leading off, you just kind of plug him in and just kind of move on there. So those are the guys I would kind of look at if I was, starting with Maeda, and you still have 3,400. Like we talked about with those Houston bats, man. If you wanted to roll a few more Houston bats and you want to get an Alvarez in there, and say you do want to get a Brantley, you can easily make a 4-man Houston stack work in cash with 2,800 left. That's easy to fill 3 guys. And that's kind of looking up at Maeda, why he's pretty popular, at the low end. Just because you can get those bats, and like I said, Milwaukee and Houston are not cheap, and he'll be I'll probably use Maeda or Paddock in my single entry as well, just because I like the bats so much. Like if you get Yelich and he's back in the 2-hole today at 4,900, I don't mind throwing him in there, and that's just where if you decide to go Yelich and then you take one of these other bats away, like a Brantley or something, you can still make that work with 2,600. So he just opens up a lot. And, I'm just going to show you one thing. So, again, that's how I would attack these guys. And to attack cash games, I'll have my whole sheet out here in a little bit. I did want to show you one thing when it comes to head-to-heads, because I will start them in the morning. And one thing I recommend doing is don't put a bunch out at once. Start these things in the morning and just create a contest. And say you want to put out, those head-to-heads. Do one at a time. Create them, put your lineup in there, and then constantly check throughout the day. And see if they get taken. Once somebody takes them, post another one. Don't go in here and post, 10 at a time here and 10 at a time here. 2 things. You're going to get people who are going to take all those, which defeats the purpose of head-to-heads. You want people that are going to just slowly take 1 or 2 at a time. You're not, you'll get guys in there, they'll see them, and they might not know your name or they'll see your average, whatever it is, and they'll just grab all of them. Again, that defeats the purpose. You might as well go play multi-entry double up if you're going to do that. And where you want to play multiple people, don't do it that way. Just, again, it's more time consuming, but you'll have a lot better results if you pick. And it doesn't matter how many you pick. But at each price point, just put in one, and then throughout the day, finally go in there and check and see if they've picked them up. And if they picked them up, you go back in here and you create it again. And then again, it's time consuming throughout the day, but you'll notice much better results going that route. What's up, DFSArmy? How's it going, brother? And that's how you do those head-to-heads like that. And so there'll be some days where, get up to your dollar figure that you're going to play at, There might be, I might get way more action one day than the next. I just keep putting them out there up until lock. Usually you'll see it more on Fridays. You see a lot more action on Fridays just because people wanting to play. It's usually a big slate on Fridays. So again, if you're playing these head-to-heads where you cannot limit how many people can take like you can on DraftKings. Like DraftKings just limit everybody to 1, and then you automatically get that. So you don't have to babysit all the sites. But on FanDuel, you can't. So this is kind of not a way around it. You'll still get people that'll come and take everything, but you won't get it 100%. You won't get people just taking everything and scooping everything, and you're playing one guy, which defeats the purpose of head-to-heads. So if you guys don't know, that's kind of how I do it every day. Is post heads-to-heads like this all day long until they fill up, and then I'll post more and more, and then probably I would say 20 minutes before lock I won't post anymore, just because if you keep posting them, they'll get auto selected, which is fine. But I just tend to stop at that point, and I start looking for a lot of 3-mans. Probably the last 30 minutes to 45 minutes, I'll look for 3-mans. You get a lot more people posting them, because if you go to the lobby right now, you'll have the same people posting. And again, I don't mind. I'll play anybody, but I want to play different people as you go. It just has so much more variance that way, and definitely prefer it. So, any questions on FanDuel or how I put out those head-to-heads, or do you want to go back to lineup construction for cash again? Do me slide over to DraftKings and kind of talk about how I see DraftKings for cash, SP1, SP2. All right. Let's slide over to DraftKings then. So again, DraftKings, Charlie Morton's 11.9. So he is up there. He's expensive. I think you could go there if you wanted to, because remember how I was mentioning a little bit about Aaron Sanchez and how he looked with Houston in that last start. And Aaron Sanchez is only 6,900 today, going against Baltimore. And if you put him in there, and then you decide that you want to throw in Morton, you still got around 3,900. You can make that work. It's a little difficult. So I don't mind, if you put, say, Sanchez in cash, and then you wanted to come down to, like we talked about before. Maeda's a little bit more expensive here than on FanDuel. I think I'd use him more on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings, I'd probably just come up to maybe go to Paddock here. Leaves you at 4,200. But I think SP2 right now for me is Aaron Sanchez at that price. And again, what he did that first game, we know he's got it in him. If we come in here and we throw in, say, Maeda and Sanchez, if you were to punt to, you got 4,500. You can basically play whoever you want to. Is that the safest thing to do in cash today? I don't know. Depends if we have value. We look at some guys here. Let's look at a few guys see how much Altuve is here. Altuve's 5,400. We throw him at second. Again, when you throw these two cheap pitchers in, you can make that happen. Bregman's probably something similar. Yeah, all the Houston guys, the DraftKings algo doesn't mess around. When it sees these guys in a good matchup, it plugs them in. But if you're going to throw those two pitchers in, I'm not saying that that's what I'll do at first. If I was going to go maybe single entry GPP, I might throw those two cheap pitchers in and just load up on bats. And even if you throw Yelich in there, you still got 3,800 for 5 bats, and you can probably make that work. I thought some cheap guys that we could probably look at. I don't think they've still priced up Aquino. I know he's going against Hendricks and ground balls and all that, but at 3,800 again, he's just been tearing the ball off or cover off the ball. Don't mind him. Guys, you can look at Van Meter at 3,500. More guys you can look at in the outfield on that Cincy team. You can get some value on the Cincy side. We didn't talk about the Dodgers a little bit, but another good source of value that we can look at is Justin Turner, the righties against Young for Arizona. If we go look at Young stats here for Arizona, he's been giving up. His K rate is really low. It's down around 20% against lefties and righties. But you got guys like Turner, who has a 242 ISO and 355 WOBA. Pollock is leading off. There's another guy that you can look at. He's got a little bit lower ISO, but he's got a 463 WOBA. 3,800 leading off. If he does lead off against Young, I have no problem going there in cash. So we have players, like I mentioned, if we did pitch, two cheap guys, to be able to fit in some of these Houston and Milwaukee studs and kind of play around with it. Who we got here? Kaboom Big Ben. What's up, Keg? Does it work to watch via PS4? I think it does. Did it not work to watch a PS4? I'm going to port this over to YouTube later, man, so I can give you the link in if you're in Slack for that if you want. Sean says, what's up, Keg? Thinking it's a day to go cheap at pitcher. I mentioned back on FanDuel, I think I'm going to go cheaper at pitcher. I'm not going to spend up because I want some of those Houston Milwaukee bats. So I was mentioning Maeda on FanDuel as he was 6,700 over there. I think so. That what he was. So it's working now. Cool, man. That's awesome. Glad it's working now. Let's just pull in here and see him. I think it was 6,700. But right now, Sean, I'm leading on pitching someone cheap. Yeah, there it is. So Maeda is 6,700. And again, I was just throwing some guys in here. And if you run Maeda, you can really load up on some of the bats that you like. And like I said, Houston, Milwaukee are the first guys I would look at. And you can really get there. But on DraftKings, I was talking, if you wanted to punt pitching and go down to Maeda and Sanchez, which I don't think it's the worst option, you can pay up for guys. But let me take out Yelich if he's back in the lineup and say here I might go like Sanchez, and maybe I don't want to go up to Morton, but like a Paddock. You've still got around 3,800. You can still make it work with paying up for two guys that are expensive. Yeah, that's cheap for Kent. Yeah, no, Maeda's cheap, man. And at that price, I think, let me see here. So the Diamondbacks right now have about just a little over a 3.5 implied team total, and he's a minus 180 favorite. So at that price, it's just so cheap, and it lets you get in the bats. Like I said, I'm really leaning him on FanDuel right now, but it's between him and Paddock, I think, is what I'm really looking at. Paddock could be an 8,400. He's Rocky's implied team total is down to around 338, and he's a minus 220 favorite. So to me, it's between them for point per dollar. That's how I really look at it, Sean. And then on DraftKings, I said you could, Sanchez is just so cheap. Like I said, if you want to punt pitching, you could still punt him with Maeda and Sanchez and play around with it. You could probably put in these guys, and I bet you could get a full Houston stack on this, and still probably not hate your lineup. If you put those two in there, and let's just look. I mean, Alvarez is 5,800. He is a little pricey. There ain't no way you're going to be able to stack these all the Houston bats, all the studs, I should say, and still build a decent lineup. Because if you put in all the studs, all these guys are 5,800. You have 2,700 left for 3 spots. Well, that usually doesn't pan out too well, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. Maybe you want to take out a Brantley, and it leaves you at 3,300. Just do a 4-man stack, or you come down and even Chernos is $4,000. And go that route, because usually you want power in your catcher spot. Either you want, for DraftKings, there's either two things that I do. Is either I pay up for that power at catcher, or I'm just punting it completely. That's where I tend to go. And if you're going to go power today, no problem going Chernos. But then you got like Shoot, Gary Hill's 5,300. I mean, they priced all these guys way up. And so it is going to be hard, even if you put two pitchers we like and throw a 5-man stack on. It's pretty tough to do to really like your lineup. Correa is even 5,500. I mean, just all these guys are all priced up. So a lot of them are better plays on FanDuel. It's easier to fit in, especially with Maeda, but you can still make it work. Just answered my question. Said, what to do with catcher normally, DK spot? Yeah, like I said, on catcher I usually punt unless I can find a bat that's power bat like Chernos in a great spot. But again, 4K is kind of expensive. So if we're going to look at some guys to maybe pay down to, man, maybe we could look at a guy like, I don't know how much of a punt it is, but we get the Dodgers righty. Usually if Will Smith is in the lineup, he's only 3,900. Depending on where he's hitting, we could throw him in there, like you said, or Chernos, or maybe you want to go up to, old Travis here. He sometimes hits lead off. He hits all over the lineup. He might hit up a little bit higher in the lineup. And he's going up against Malone. And if he's leading off at 4,200, I don't mind going a guy like that in cash. Again, he's pretty stinking cheap. And at 4,200, I don't mind that. Got any other questions, Sean? But the bill, just looking at it at first glance, it's tough to get those Houston guys in there on DraftKings. Whereas FanDuel, it's much easier. I said you can easily fit in a 4-man Houston stack. Whereas we got 2,700 left for 3 spots. It's just the pricing is so much softer over on FanDuel. I'm not saying that I would stack 4 guys in FanDuel. Anything can happen. We just looked last night when we thought, Edwin Jackson up against KC. We know what happened there. So anything can happen, and it's just one of those things where you just kind of have to roll with the punches. We had Merrifield and Soler both hit home runs, which is great, but just the team overall as a stack didn't work out. But and again, with how expensive these bats are, I would start with Altuve and Bregman. No, I'm glad you've been playing FanDuel and haven't really touched DK lately, but I was thinking about doing it today. Yeah, I have too. I've been basically playing cash games on FanDuel, and it gets more difficult as you get more and more sports coming in. Like, I'll probably play baseball up until end of August, and then September's here. It's football season, man. College football, NFL. I won't play baseball anymore. I'm just done with it. Once college football and NFL get here, it's just you have all the different call-ups from different guys coming up, teams not competing. And it just gets really ugly to play baseball. I know some people still do, but I'd rather focus my attention on, NFL and NFL tournaments and cash games are just, NFL is king. There's so much information out there. There's so many guys that play that you just slowly, lead your cash games out same kind of way. There's some great tournaments, like Fantasy Draft just dropped that tournament in NFL yesterday with that great payout structure. I was probably going to enter DrattKings Millionaire Maker Week 1, but I might just max that one out. Even though it's 100K up top, it's so much flatter. You're only going up against 50,000 guys instead of 300,000. I know it's a million, but the FanDuel, the Fantasy Draft one will keep you in the game a lot longer, and you can still win some really nice money. So yeah, we got about 20 days of baseball left before we move on over to football. Like I said, we've got preseason going on, which Chris has his notes up already. It's a 3-gamer tonight, but not something that I'll probably play a ton in. I'll dabble some more, but I'll probably focus more on baseball team tonight since it's a 10-game slate. And they might do some MMA, man. Like looks like a decent card over in MMA, and get in that Slack room and start chatting. So, what else you guys want to chat about or see or talk about? So I'm here, just hanging out. So if there's something you want to know about or talk about. I'm sorry, Collins, what are you asking about? You're talking about Adrian Hauser? Did you go over early FanDuel? No, I didn't go over early FanDuel. I can if you like. I'm not going to play it, but we can go over it if you'd like to. Is that something you want to talk about there? I was just going over the main slate, but if it's something you want to chat about, it's too easy. I think it's just a 3-gamer. They got some great offense. I think first glance, it's not a slate that I would play cash in for sure. Some of these tournaments are already starting to fill up. Wow, they're almost full, and they got about 2 hours. Oh, they do have. That's a 5-gamer. Now you could probably play cash in a 5-gamer. I still don't think I would, but we can give her a look. Seems like Turnbull is the best option. Let's give a look here, and we'll just kind of go over it. Turnbull 6,200, huh? Man, that is rough. There's a lot of bats I'd want to pay up for. I think first glance at it, yeah, it's Soroka up top, 9K. But what bats are you going to get up with it? You got Velasquez that can case some guys at, the Giants. Catch Fish Land or FanDuel's. Yeah, it's a 5-gamer. Yeah, FanDuel's a 5-gamer. I just pulled it up. But man, I guess if you're going to pay down, I guess it could be Turnbull, but that's still a little scary. If you're paying down, yeah, I would say Turnbull's the guy, but if you're paying up, I would just go all the way up to Soroka because pitching is ugly looking at this. Porcello's a trash can. Them Angels freaking are starting to get hot. Montgomery's garbage. I wouldn't even mind stacking Detroit on this if you're going to pay up at pitching. Man, yeah. It's boy, that's a rough slate for you. I would not play cash in this. It is rough. It is rough. Holy crap! You might be looking at a guy like let's see just looking at the run totals. Yeah, the lowest implied team total on the early slate is Miami. They got 3.06. Soroka's a minus 240 favorite. So you could look that way. If you put Turnbull, KC's got a 4.5 implied team total, and he's only a minus 138 favorite. So if you're going to go down that, I would go him because if you look at you can't pitch Porcello, you can't pitch Heaney. I mean that's 11.5 over under, and even though Porcello's the favorite, the Angels are still 5.5 team total there. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think if you're pitching, let's just put Turnbull in there and look because I wouldn't play cash in this. I'd play tournament. If you're going to play a tournament, you might as well roll him. And then some of the stacks we're going to look at anyways are Boston and, the Yankees are going to be the popular ones. I don't mind taking the Angels again against Porcello because I think he's crap. And then the Detroit, I think, is your sneaky stack. If I was going to take a sneaky stack against Montgomery, I don't mind them at all. The Braves have been hitting really well right now. Alcantara's only 6,100, but I think, with how hot the Braves have been and almost a 5 implied team total, I don't mind that. But let's say we're going to throw Soroka up there, and let's look at some of these Detroit bats we could play him with. Just do something different, because I think a lot of people are going to probably play a guy like Turnbull, and then, they will look at, paying up. Oh, yeah, Travis is a great value. I think I saw him. He's like 2,900 for Boston. Yeah, in the 4-hole, if you were playing cash, that's a plug-and-play there. At that price, hitting in the cleanup, you can't beat that. Let's look at Boston real quick. Yeah, JD with his 2 bombs yesterday. Good Lord, he just went off. Yeah, Chavez is 6-hole, 2,900. So there is some cheap Boston bats you could go here. Even if you wanted to pay up for Soroka, I think you can make it work. You just might not be able to pay for some of the expensive bats, but we could probably still get there if we throw in some Detroit guys. Let's look at a full stack here. Say, coming off 2 home runs, I don't know if we want to go there. Maybe I'll just go back to Mookie and then look at Xander. You get 2,900 left, and maybe this is where we look at some of them Tiger bats. And then we can get some cheap Tiger bats, and they could do something here. If Reyes leads off again, I don't mind throwing him in there. And you have plenty of room. So even paying up Soroka, it looks like you could still easily get to the Boston bats. The Yankees, we got LeMahieu leading off. Soroka, you're not going to be able to get the Yankees, that's for sure. Judge is back in the lineup. He's only 4K. Old Mike T. Old Friedman loves him some Mike T. That guy's been hitting the ball or the cover off the ball. Yeah, no Benintendi for Boston. Yeah, it looks like Travis in the 4-hole is just a plug and play, though, man, if you're playing single entry or cash games in this early slate. Maben's been tearing the ball or the cover off the ball, 3,400. I don't mind him. LeMahieu leading off. You could make this work easily with, I think, Soroka, a couple Boston guys, a couple Yankees. Yeah, Mike T, man, I'm telling you, every time Mike T hits a home run, death taxes and Friedman coming into the room talking about him hitting best player in baseball. So it's always fun. Yeah, Vasquez is no one ever plays him. They always play the expensive bats, and I always like doing that. I did that in cash a few times, playing Travis and Vasquez like that. So that's a good point, Arky. That's one way to get different. And then you come off of Xander or somebody, and you could still put in, say you wanted to look at your Yankees there, and you could still look at your Urshela's in the 5-hole, but he takes up that spot. But you do have, LeMahieu and Didi, and I ain't going to fill out the last position ever, but you could still do it. You could still have a 5-man Boston stack. There's 2 Yankees. Throwing Reyes if he's leading off, and you got 3,300. So, and that's with Soroka. So, yeah, like I said, I think you can make it work with Soroka pretty easily. And with how bad pitching is, I might just lean him. I don't think you need Turnbull to make a good lineup with how cheap some of these guys are. We could see what are some of the prices at DraftKings for that early slate. I never even looked. It's a 5-gamer. Yeah, Jacoby 2,900 is a great price. FanDuel's just, everything's free over there, man. Soroka 10-4 here, huh? What do we got? Wow, Turnbull's up to 8K here. So anytime I see DraftKings throwing up a guy up at like 8K, yeah, he's really in play over at FanDuel at that price, because their algo is just much more in tune with the slate and applied team totals and everything. Yeah, you can only go 4 on FanDuel. Yep. So, yeah, I don't mind. I don't know if I'd rather play Turnbull on FanDuel than DraftKings here at 8K. But it's just a dumpster fire of pitching. It really is ugly. Like here, say you wanted to take your Soroka, Turnbull, and you got 3,900 left. I think Boston bats are probably going to be priced up a little bit more here. And get your Vasquez at 4,200. Throw Travis there. Chavez. You can probably still make it work with a stack. It just might not be the stack you want. They're still priced down a little bit. I'm surprised they're not up in the 5Ks. So maybe you want to go that 5-man stack. You have 3,200, so you can still make it work. You can still stack basically whoever you want. All right, Arky, have a good one, brother. Good chatting with you, man. So there's different ways you can go about it, but on FanDuel it just looks like these guys are free. You can play basically whoever you want to, which makes it difficult. But other questions you guys have or want to talk about? That early slate, I still wouldn't play cash games. None of those pitchers make me feel good. I still think I would probably take Soroka because I think there's enough value, but I still wouldn't play cash games at all. I just think it's not the best way to go around it. But on main slate, for sure, it's a much better slate to play cash. I think I would just throw a few lineups and tournaments here, and who knows, I might get off here and do that myself and see what we can come up with and be a little different. Like I said, Detroit, I think, is a good stack to be a little different on this early slate. I don't even mind playing some Toronto bats to be different. Probably going to be off, I don't know, maybe a Philly stack. And Shamarja is he's not the shark of old like we're used to seeing, and Philly will be low owned. So that's a low-owned stack I don't mind in the early slate. Like I said, everybody's going to be on Boston with that big output that they had last night, and especially JD with that 2-home run game. So this is where I don't mind taking the other side of it and just playing the Angels. Again, Porcello can get blown up at any time, so I don't mind running an Angel stack and see what they can do with that, and see if we can still get Soroka in there. If we're stacking, we got to have a little Trout Master in there. But all these guys are relatively cheap. And we talked about running you can do maybe a whole game stack here if you wanted to, of Boston and LA, where you can get in what we talked about before, where we threw in a Travis, a Vasquez, and we still have money to do it. We get in the outfield there. You want to throw a Thase in there. And then Chavez. They got 2 slots left here. One Boston, one LA, and some of the options we have. We got an Upton there at 3,400. Jackie Bradley Jr. is always in play. You can go up to, I don't think we can go quite up to him. We go up to, say, Betts. Leaves us 2,900. Don't really have enough for another LA guy, so you might have to come down and play if you're going to do a full stack. Or you do a 4-3-1 if you don't like Dace. We have plenty of third basemen we could choose from other games. Maybe this is where you plug in DJ and then throw in 2 other guys to do a 4-3-1. So, yeah, you can definitely make anything work with Soroka. To me, it's an ugly slate to play. But if you're going to play it, I would just MME it and play in tournaments. I wouldn't focus so much on cash games at all. I would just kind of have fun with it. What else? Anybody else want to talk about anything? Doesn't matter. Strategy. How I play every day. Like what coming up NFL season. I really don't care. I'm here to chat as long as you guys want to. If you guys want to talk shop, man, just ask all the questions you want, and I'll sit around here and talk DFS with you guys. I haven't really dug into week 1 pricing too much for NFL, but week 1's always fun because there'll be some unfortunate injuries that'll happen in training camp or preseason that'll open up some value. And again, when you get almost a month to go up to see where people are at, people have a long time to digest that information. You'll see there's still an edge to be had because I think people don't go too heavy on guys that they should. So I'm really looking forward to diving into NFL regular season this year, and you really got to check out our optimizer. So Kaboom Big Ben says, do you think it's needed to stack 5-2 on DrattKings? That's a good question. I don't think, like, for me, if it's like a bigger slate, I really think, it depends on the size. So if it's a tournament where you're having, 50,000 or more entries, it's really hard to win with those stacks. But if you're getting towards the single entry or maybe a couple thousand running a 5-3 stack or 5-2 stack, you get on the right teams and they'll put you at a bunch of points. But when you get in those large tournament fields, you'll see a lot of guys run like a 5-man stack with 3 one-offs, or they'll run like a 4-man stack with 4-2 and some one-offs. I tend to like to just run a 5-3, a 5-2, a 5 with 3 one-offs, and then sometimes I'll even run a 4-4 on DraftKings, even though I tend to do that on FanDuel. I don't mind doing that on DraftKings as well in those big tournaments, because a lot of people run the 5-2, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you will see, if you can hit your 5-man stack and you get 3 one-offs, guys just smashing double home runs, you're going to win something. So when you're setting up your GPP pool, your one-offs, you want to be guys that are going to have home run upside. You don't want your one-offs to be guys that are hitting singles and crap like that. So you can go into the optimizer, and one thing I like to do is just, like we have the like, adore, love buttons. Boost up all your one-offs. CG has a great list. You can go in there and jack up all the guys that are great one-off plays. And if it doesn't move them up enough so they hit your one-offs, then adjust their projection completely. Go in there and really give them a high projection, so you're getting them in those lineups. But you want your one-offs to be home run hitters, your Mike Trouts, your Yelich's. Doesn't have to be the high-priced guys, but guys that have 20, 30, 40 point upside, they're going to help you win a GPP. Having a one-off of, for instance, for Boston, Brock Holt as a one-off is not going to get it done. Very rarely that guy's going to hit a home run. He probably gets you a single, 3 points, 6 points. That's not going to get it done. You don't want guys like that as one-offs. You want power home run hitters. Guys are going to put up big numbers that can take that 5-man stack that you might have 1 or 2 guys in that 5-man stack that only put up 7 to 10 and not the 20 to 30. Well, those 3 one-offs that you had, if they're putting up 20 to 30 each, it doesn't matter with that. The one guy that put up 7 to 10 points in your DraftKings or your FanDuel, he was probably really cheap to begin with, and you can still win GPPs that way. But those one-offs are really important, and you really need to boost those guys up. Kaboom says, last night I had Harper as a one-off instead of Peterson, and that was lovely. Yeah, man, exactly. And again, you want to mix and match them. You don't just want one-off. Like, I don't want just Mike Trout to be my one-off across the board. You want a good mix of, I would say, 5 to 10 guys in my pool, a one-off pool that I'm really boosting up, that are going to be in a bunch of those lineups that I think are in the best spots. And, of course, they can't be all the expensive guys. You need some guys on the lower end that have that pop as well. And so, again, a great place to look for that within the Army is CG's list that he puts out. I think it's fantastic when you're looking to do tournament lineups and to see what's clicking in his model. And it's just a great way to look at and say, okay, well, these are the guys he's on, and cross-reference with the list that you've made throughout the day or through other coaches and whatnot, and see, okay, these are the guys that I need to boost up their projections, because if I don't, they're not going to hit my 5-2, 5-3, 4-4 stacks. So yeah, that's how what I would look at. If you're really looking at your MME strategy, is really focus on that pool and to boost that projections for those guys. And I said we have an easy way to do it with our projections at DFS Army, as you can just simply hit that adore button. Let me pull it up real quick, and just people that are not members, show them how it's done, how it's so easy to boost up a projection that we have. Let me pull up the early slate. And I'll slide this thing in here. So like I said, an easy way to boost up a guy that we want, is right here. This button right here. Adore Love Light. It's really simple. Give him a 15% boost to his projection. And do this for, like I said, 10 to 15 guys would be my pool for one-offs. Like I said, if you don't have a lot of time to research or look a lot of things, CG's list is really simple. It throws out 10 or 15 guys you can plug in there. You can have more or less. But just guys that you want to really pop in those one-offs, even in your Boston stacks. If you don't want, let's look at point per dollar through here. So when I'm looking at here, if Harper's only 4,200 and he's grading out really well, and we want to make sure he's one of our one-offs and pop more, maybe I'll throw an Adore on him. Sam Travis is cheap. Upton, another guy. We're like, well, he has double home run upside. Let's throw an Adore on him to get his projection up. And this is just a quick way to do it without having to adjust projections, because you might not know how much to adjust. And if they're not popping when you run, go back and give them that manual adjustment. If he's at 10 forward and you're like, well, he's not showing up, let me just throw a 12 on him. Same thing with Harper. Well, let's throw a 15 on him because I want him to pop more. Regardless what it is, it's do that for 10 to 15 guys. Find that pool. Get your pitcher pool down, find your stacks, and then your one-offs go in there and either manually adjust them, or, like I said, we have a simple tool in here where you just, say Corey Dickerson. Okay, boom, let's move him up the list. I want him to be a one-off. And just do that through 10 or 15 guys, and I think that'll help your MME game a ton, and it gets those one-off bats in there that'll help you win GPPs. Any other questions there, Kaboom, you might have? If not, I might go start finishing up my cash sheet, which I'll post here within an hour or so. And then I got to finish those NFL projections, because again, we got a three-game NFL preseason slate today. So if you want to dabble in a little bit of that, come on over. We got MMA. I think it starts at 5 or 6. Come dabble in some of that. And we got everything in our optimizer here. We got preseason loaded. Kaboom says, for NBA, I always have a player pool. I haven't tried making one for MLB. Yeah, for MLB, I'm sorry, for NBA, yeah, for sure. But for MLB, I don't really make a player pool. I just adjust the guys that I want really to pop higher. So I really care about just getting the projections on my one-offs to be really high. That's my focus, because otherwise, if you're trying to do a player pool for MLB, it's really hard. And sometimes you want some of those guys to hit, especially in your stacks. So I don't really make a player pool, for instance, except for pitchers. The one thing I really do for pitchers is I'll only stick to, say, 5 to 6 pitchers, and that's my player pool. But for hitters, I'll let them all go. I'll just adjust the projections up. So yeah, like I said, Kaboom, I don't adjust my hitters at all. I do like just what I talked about. I will just boost those guys up that I want up, and then it's just setting the percentages for my stacks. But then, like, say, pitchers, I'll deselect all of them, and I'll say, okay, well, for today, I only want Velasquez, Turnbull, Soroka, that might, I don't really like Alcantara. It's really hard. Maybe I think Heaney gets to Boston. I don't. But this is just an example. Don't use this. But this is an example where on this slate I might only want 4 pitchers only, and I just want to mix and match all 4 of them. So I'll deselect everybody, run 4, and then set my percentages. Say I want a 60% max across them, and then certain guys I want only 20% of him, but say Soroka I want 60%, and Turnbull I want 60, and Velasquez I maybe want 40 or whatever it is. Set these up with your pitchers and then run everything. But the pitcher's the only thing that I really limit myself. The hitters I don't. There's just too many different combinations, and when you're doing stacks, you won't be able to get 150 lineups if you start limiting your pool too much. But just focus on boosting those hitters up a ton, and that'll help itself to get those guys to pop in your lineups when you're building things. So yeah, I hope that helps, man. Hope that makes some sense. Like I said, focus on those pitchers first. Your pitcher pool first. Don't even worry about hitters. Narrow down that pitcher pool to anywhere between 4 to 8 pitchers if you're doing DraftKings. And on FanDuel, I usually limit my pitchers to like 3 or 4. I don't like to go more than that because I want my stacks to do the talking, not my pitchers. I just want to take stands on pitchers, and wherever I end up on that hill with pitchers, I end up. And if they have a bad night, I know I'm going to have a big bad night. But I have a high risk tolerance for stuff like that, and I don't mind. To me on the early slate, I would probably roll with, Soroka, maybe a little bit of Velasquez, and then Turnbull, and those would be like my 3 pitchers. I'm like, okay, I'm planting my flag on these guys. Whatever happens, and just roll my stacks from that. It'll give your stacks to go around a lot. So, yeah, that's how I do it. And again, on FanDuel, on the smaller the slate, the more I don't think you need to do the 4-4 stacks and the 4-3 stacks. I've had some of the best success on the smaller slates. And now 5, you don't need to do this, but also remember when you're doing stacks with smaller slates, like say 2 or 3, don't forget to have your hitters against pitchers when you run them. A lot of people don't do that, and you're going to have pitchers that'll do well and get good points, but he's going to give up 1 or 2 home runs, and you want those guys that are going to get 1 or 2 home runs in your pool against your pitcher in 2 or 3 game slates. I don't think you need to do it on a 5-gamer. If I did, I would limit to just 1, but on big slate, on small slates like 2 or 3 games, I don't mind doing 2 to 3 hitters against my pitcher, because he might have a great game and strike out a bunch of people, but if he gives up 2 or 3 solo home runs, I want those guys to get home runs. They're going to be low owned against your pitcher. Your lineup's going to be automatically unique, and it can take you over the top. Do you allow batters for opposing pitcher? Yeah, City, that's what I was just talking about. Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely do that on the smaller slates. Not like on a 10-gamer, I wouldn't do it, but on a small slate, definitely do that. Like, you're hurting yourself if you don't. And some of the tournaments that I've ever won on the smaller slates have been where you have that 1 or 2 guys against your pitcher, because a lot of people don't want to do it just naturally because they're used to, and that'll take you over the edge, especially if you have a guy that says hits 2 home runs off your pitcher, but your pitcher rolls and he's the best guy, especially if it's an ugly slate with pitching. Like today's not a great slate for pitching. This is the perfect example to do it, because the highest pitcher might only get 30 FanDuel points and give up 3 or 4 runs, and it could be a double donger to one of the guys. So I look at that. So back on the main slate, you want to look at the main slate real quick? Yes, I don't mind a Padres stack at all on the main slate. They're a little over 5. They're going to be a low owned stack. Their implied team total is a little over 5.5, or a little under 5.5. If Tatis leads off, love that guy. He's got huge upside. Hosmer, Mejia at catcher. No one will play him on FanDuel. That's another thing I want to touch on too. Yeah, they seem to be boom or bust, and that's what's great about having those stacks in tournaments, is they're so low owned, everybody else knows it. But one thing I want to mention while we have this up that wins a lot of tournaments. In FanDuel, so many people in tournaments do not want to play a catcher. And on this early slate, we got guys like Real Muto and Sanchez. People always want to gravitate to the pitchers the first baseman. Because the first basemen seem to just hit better. The catchers don't. But on this slate, it's perfect. When you got a Sanchez, Real Muto, both fantastic options. We also talked about earlier Vasquez, 2,700 and 5-hole. He's another catcher. Those 3 guys will be lower owned than they should on FanDuel because you're not forced to play one of them. And that way, you are unique that way, picking a pitcher. Where on DraftKings, you're forced to pick a catcher, so people do. But on FanDuel, on the big slates, early slates, any of that stuff, you are going to be different just having a catcher in your lineup, either a one-off or a stack. So that's where putting those catchers in play will really make your lineup different, because people just naturally don't want to do it. They won't see him talked up a lot in the industry. They won't see him hit projections very high, because first basemen are usually projected a lot higher than catchers. But that's that's how I look at that, man. So I've been in a drought. I haven't played DFS in like a month. Yeah, man, that happens, especially with baseball. Like, once NFL and NBA gets here, things are just much easier to project, you know? Like, we don't have Mike Trout going 0 for 4 and giving you a 0. So baseball's a long grind. I posted, my results from last month about the grind, and you'll see the ups and downs of my chart. And, I can come and talk about that and show you guys that. I haven't played about every day here, because with NFL preseason here and me trying to do projections and trying to do everything else that we have around here with football ramping up, it's kind of rough. So with baseball, you kind of need to play every day in cash and just grind them out and roll the roller coasters up and down. So baseball is one of the hardest sports to grind because of how volatile it is. So when football gets around and basketball, things are much easier to project. LeBron James is not going to give you a 0 unless he gets hurt. Patrick Mahomes is probably not going to go under, 10, 15 fantasy points unless he gets hurt. So it's much easier. So if you were ever going to grind something, baseball is definitely the hardest if you're getting into DFS, and it's one that a lot of people don't want to try to do it, even though it is possible. It's definitely one of the hardest. So yeah, man, we're gonna have again, preseason's kind of tough too. It's not the easiest. So don't think that preseason is like regular season. Preseason, we're just taking stabs on how we look at depth charts, seeing who's gonna get that playing time. But it's still hit or miss. It's not like regular season where we can project these guys out a lot better. So. I know it's coming. Again, college football, man, we only have like 2 weeks left before week 0 gets here with that Miami game. There's 2. So, just keep grinding away, man, and we'll get there. We'll get to the good days of fall and winter, man, where DFS is just golden, and we can just crush and make money every night, man. So, I'll see you guys in Slack, and let me get my article up, or my sheet up, and let me work on those projections. And then if you have any questions, man, please slide into the room and asking questions you might have for baseball or NFL preseason night. I know Chris is in there answering questions all day, and he's constantly looking, updating his sheet. And but yeah, I need to get after those things so I can load them up for you guys. And yeah, see, speaking of that, about college football in your state, yeah, man, I'm in Indiana, and we can't play college football in my state. I drive my butt an hour to the Illinois border every Friday night, man, to enter all the contests, and it sucks, but I love college football that much that I'm willing to make that drive every day. So, yeah, I think as more states adopt, bills that allow gambling, college football will be in every state here within a couple of years. And that's one thing here in Indiana. I still haven't got an answer yet. Are they going to allow college football? Because, well, Indiana passed a bill to allow sports betting that starts in September. So if you're going to tell me I can't make a bet on Notre Dame, or I can make a bet on Notre Dame, but I can't play Notre Dame in DFS, that's just insane. That's just insane to me. So I don't know. Hopefully they'll change that for us, and I don't have to make that drive. But if I do, that's the way it is. But I'm really hoping that as more states come on board, these contests get back to 2015 circa, where we have the 100K up top in these tournaments. And I think it's just going to continue to grow. And again, it's one of my favorite sports to play and watch. It's a blast. So if you're going to come and play college football, we're going to have a great product. We're going to have the optimizer this year. We're going to have great projections. And we're just going to kill it this year, man. I have a really good feeling. Friedman and guys, we've been cranking on looking at sleepers and guys we're going to jump on here week 1 for a while now, man. And it just get here. So, again, if you guys have any questions, man, hit me up in Slack. I'm going to go back and finish the projections and finish my cash sheet. So, I'll see you. Yeah, before I head off, City. Yeah, Illinois does allow college football because that's where I drive to. I drive to Illinois to. That's where I hit the border to enter my college football game. So, you're good to go if you're in Illinois because that's where I enter. So at least that was last year, and I'm sure it's the same. But again, I'll see you guys in Slack, and thanks for hanging out. Deuces.